Welcome to the Online Marketing for Doctors podcast, the place to grow and scale profitable practices with your show hosts, Huyen Truong and Steve Tate.
Hello and welcome to the Online Marketing for Doctors podcast channel, the first Australian healthcare marketing podcast channel designed to help motivated practitioners implement clever and effective marketing ideas to grow and scale their practice. We're your hosts. I'm Stephen Tate.
And Huyen Truong.
And today we're coming to you from off-site. We're at a new location. We're at a podiatry clinic in Sydney, Australia. And today we are speaking to our guest host, Brent Goddard.
Hi guys, thanks for having me along.
No, thank you very much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, well I guess I'm a podiatrist, trained in New Zealand, and came to Sydney in 2004, and along with Lance Penn, my business partner, we set up Mod Pod Podiatry. We were known as Footpoint Sports Clinic at the time. We have rebranded since then, and it's been sort of 10, 11 years of providing sort of podiatry services within Sydney and expanding out to 5 locations now. And so it's been an interesting journey.
And where are your 5 locations?
So we're Mossman, DY, the Sydney CBD, North Ryde, and we've got a satellite clinic in Morisset as well, which is a sort of a similar sort of franchise model with another podiatrist who runs that up there.
Is there a 6th one in the works?
Not at this stage. We're sort of pulling back a little bit.
Sure.
Sometimes you can go a little too wide.
Sure.
And you start to lose a bit of control. So we're kind of feeling our way through that. We had one in Barangaroo for the last 12 months.
Right.
But just finding that was probably a bit too much to handle. I've recently moved back to New Zealand, so I'm doing a lot of off-site management, and Lance is the man on the street here, and he's just finding that a bit too much.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's just sort of working out how to scale and what we want to do. Do we want to build each clinic slightly bigger as opposed to wider, having more and more locations?
And each clinic offers the same services?
More or less, yeah. There's a few clinics that don't quite have some of the equipment. I guess our cornerstone clinics is the Mossman, Sydney CBD, and the DY practices.
Yep.
And then the other ones a little bit more. They are still building those on the satellite edge.
Sure. So now with all of these practices, I guess this leads in wonderfully to our topic that we wanted to talk about today with you.
Sure.
This idea around acquiring new patients. I
Yep.
guess every time you're opening up one of these new practices, you'll need to start sort of investing time and energy into acquiring new patients. So we're just wondering, when you were first starting your first practices, how did finding new patients sort of look back then?
Yeah, look, it's always a challenge, starting your practice. You can't just sort of put your sign on the door and expect to be busy.
Sure.
I guess when I partnered up with Lance, he had a couple more years under his belt building private practices, so I learnt a lot from him. And in the initial days, this was 10 years ago, Google was existed, but nobody used it. We're
Sure.
still using Yellow Pages print at that
Right.
stage. So we put most of our effort into building medico networks. So meeting and greeting doctors, GPs especially, and then all the allied health around that. So physio practices, gyms, running clubs. So we spent a lot of time out there talking to people, taking lunches to people, and I guess trying to build our reputation that way, which worked fantastically well. That really did work well.
Sure.
The good old relationships. I just don't think you can ever beat that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I would agree. And when do you still find that relevant today? I mean, it has somewhat. The market has shifted. There's a lot more sort of online content or ways to market through online means where you're kind of removing that face-to-face interaction. Do you find that those older methods are still relevant today?
Yeah, look, I'd say yes, and I think what we've learned over the time is we invested a lot into Google, especially when Google was going, and it works really well. But you're also held a little bit accountable to Google's algorithms or paying for advertising.
Sure.
And you can be at the top of the heap, and then that can shift with an algorithm change, and suddenly you're not. So I think we've learned that we've weighted too far towards Google for a period of time, and maybe neglected some of these relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So we're now actually going back to some of the old methods and putting more time into getting our feet on the street again to meet with people. I think the flip side to that is that doctors probably don't refer... No, that's not correct. That consumers probably go more to Google now for a lot of things than they used to go to for their GP. So we've seen a drop-off in our GP referrals for some of the small stuff because they're like, well, let's Google what that is and let's find someone. And they're skipping the GP out of that sort of process.
Right.
So even though we are still networking, definitely the market has changed.
Sure.
So I think it's putting your eggs around multiple baskets.
Sure.
You have to kind of have a little bit of everything.
And what are some of the ways you are still putting yourselves out there, building relationships? Is it still through the same sort of clubs and investment?
Yeah, it is. So, I mean, it's first tapping back into our Medico network, which
Right.
is very strong with our GPs.
Right.
And then it's, networking with maybe some of the local businesses in the area as well, especially things like shoe shops and industries like cafes, etc., that they might have their staff on their feet a lot. Places like beauty salons where they're seeing nails and things and trying to educate them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's happening. I think the key with any of this is consistency.
Right.
And a one-off visit isn't going to do anything.
Sure.
You're just not going to build a relationship. So you have to try and build those relationships over time.
Right.
I think the biggest thing that we learned is finding a match. So you might go and meet 10 doctors, but only one or two of those will be a match with one, your personality and your business. And that's okay, I think I used to kick myself a little bit in the early days thinking that I went and saw a doctor multiple times and they never referred to me. And you just don't gel with everyone. It's not like they don't like you, but they just
Right.
don't see you on your wavelength. So target the doctors that you think you have a match with, and then drill a bit deeper on the
Right.
relationship.
Well, that's good advice in general, that not everyone is a client for you. Not everyone will be the right match.
Correct. Yeah.
And to accept that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and move on and just keep
Right.
working on the things that work.
So when you talk about the sort of maybe these two realms of marketing, this sort of modern digital marketing, but also that foot traffic, I mean, percentage-wise, would you be able to say sort of how much you're investing in either?
I'd say 50-50
Right.
at the moment, and we were probably a little bit more weighted recently towards Google, which was sort of 80-20, and we're trying to shift that back.
Right.
Just, like I said, Google can be fickle. When it's good, it's great, but when it's bad, it's also bad, whereas your relationships it's a slow burn. So you can't go and meet with doctors' clinics and then expect business the next day that you can with turning on a Google AdWord where you expect a conversion straight away.
Yep.
So you expect those things to come across, maybe in 6 months' time. So
Sure.
you have to play the long game with your relationships.
Sure.
And then your Google, definitely your paid advertising on Google is the very short term, and then as you guys know, your SEO stuff is again the long burn on that side of the web marketing.
Yeah, there are no quick fixes, are there?
Absolutely not. And again, this is one of our things that we've sort of dropped the ball and we become overreactive when things get a little bit quiet. We go, wow, let's scramble and what can we do? And again, we've learned that it's actually, you have to just keep playing that long game all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's explore that. I mean, it's interesting to hear someone say that, we went so much further with it before, up to this sort of 80% model. Now we're pulling it back to 50%. I mean, what were some of the sort of the trials and errors that you were finding during this period which made you realize, no, let's dial it back?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's probably a conversation I'd like to have with you guys later on. I think it's easy to go out there and acquire a database through a lead generation thing, but what kind of quality is that lead generation? You might be getting people signing up for a form or some information, but will they convert into a client, and how long does that conversion process take? So that's a little bit of a grey area that we don't know.
Sure.
And I think we've got the funnel right that we can get those people.
Yep.
And I've actually created quite a big database, but now I'm not too sure what to do with it because a lot of them haven't converted into clients, but they're still sitting there.
Your database, yeah.
So again, I want to come back to you guys and pick your brains
Sure.
on what do I do with these people? They're interested enough to sign up.
Sure.
But how do we now convert them into someone who wants to come into the clinic?
Great.
So that's question mark. And we were talking earlier off the recording about Facebook, and we did a fair bit with Facebook.
Yep.
But we've found that it didn't really work so much for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we didn't do it right, or we kind of question it. But I kind of get the feel with Google, people are actively searching for a service or a condition. They've got a sore foot or a sore knee.
Right.
Facebook, they're just looking at their friend's feed, and then an ad pops up about heel pain, for example.
Right.
And so you've got such a smaller segment of people who have heel pain at that time, and are they going to engage with that ad?
Yep.
So again, our conversion ratio has been a lot lower, even though your costs are lower on Facebook for your advertising, and you can target a little bit more.
Was it ever good? Was it ever working for you?
I think we were quite late to the Facebook game. We only really did it 12, 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And it was okay, but I wouldn't say it set us on fire or like, we're going to drill a lot into this.
Yeah.
So do you remember what is the cost per lead compared to Google?
It ended up being about the same, but I don't think the quality of the lead was as good. A bit more flaky, if it's, they're probably more likely to cancel their appointment and didn't follow through as well. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And so who manages all of your sort of patient acquisition processes here, both digital and relationships? Yeah,
look, so I guess I'm really heading up the digital side as far as the nuts and bolts.
You yourself?
Yeah. Lance, we've worked with you guys in the past. I've tried to, because I've stepped back from consulting more, I've sort of been more interested in actually doing that. So I've learned a lot about SEO and AdWords and not so much about Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Lance overall does a sort of the big vision and says, we want to build up on this condition, and I had to go out and research it and work out what to do.
Okay.
But then Lance is very much in charge of the relationship side of our business, so he does all the liaisons with the medical people. He then brings in our other staff members, depending who's appropriate for each clinic, and to build those relationships on the ground.
Did you find it hard taking it on yourself, this sort of side of it? Something you weren't used to, new technology? Look,
I've always been interested in technology, so kind of it has its moments of brilliance where things are working well, and I high-five myself, and then when things aren't, I'm like, I don't know anything, I doubt myself.
Yep.
So, I think it's, trying to keep in contact with the likes of you guys and getting some feedback and advice on what can we do, are we doing this right, am I guessing, but, I think as general advice for people who don't understand it well, then they really need to use a company to help them. Otherwise, it's a bit of a minefield out there. Just trying to, especially AdWords, you can blow a lot of cash and get no zero return.
Right. Do you find it time consuming?
Yes, the learning curve is high.
Right.
Once I was on top of that, I think it became a lot easier. But still it is. For example, I've been working on landing pages recently, and I find that very interesting but very frustrating as well. You can spend an hour just changing the image.
Sure.
Just trying, you can't. Then you become am I too focused on this image that no one else cares about?
Right.
You get so drilled in, and so am I being productive with my time? I don't know. So, but I'm a bit. My personality is a little bit like that. I just can drill down into the detail.
Sure.
So Lance, that's why he's bigger picture, and he kind of keeps me honest, I guess, and pulls me back and
Sure.
tells me that I'm probably wasting time.
Looking over too many of these images for your landing pages.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just
going through stock images and trying.
And you start wondering what do people actually want to be looking at. What's the psychology behind it all as well?
Sure. And how are you looking into the future? I mean, is there sort of a new sort of a technique, or do you still see this shift towards maybe more relationship building as being effective, or staying 50-50? Do you have a sense, a feel of where things might be going for you and your clinic?
Yeah, look, I think it's very dynamic, and we've always tried to be dynamic, and we will kind of roll the punches.
Mm-hmm.
Again, what we've learned is I think relationships are still king. It's still about meeting people. It's still about people knowing what you do, and you can't beat the good old meet over lunch or coffee to build those relationships.
Yep.
And the internet is also an amazing tool, but it is dynamically changing, so keeping abreast of all of that stuff is important.
Yep.
And I'm really interested in what you guys are doing with podcasts and webinars, so that's on our radar.
Oh, right, okay,
great. So I don't know where that'll lead, but definitely on our radar with what we're thinking.
And you're seeing how easy these podcasts are right now.
Absolutely. I guess... again, questions for you guys, whether our clients will be interested in listening to podcasts from us. Is it content they want to consume? I don't know. So it'd be good to get your feedback again on whether...
There's only one way to know.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got to try.
Absolutely.
Well, great. And you would even kind of touched on the word funnel, sales funnel, funneling people into... sort of into a potential client. Sales funnels being a very sort of new style of marketing, of trying to lead people in through a process where they inevitably become a client. You're doing this now? You're trying this now?
Yeah, we've tried it over I've been doing it now for 12 months. And so we've sort of, start with the funnel and then put them into a nurture program where they may get multiple emails trying to nurture them into a client. And again, that's a very much a longer burn than what we're used to, which is click on our ad and ring our phone number because you've got a sore toe. And again, I don't know. That's my question on how effective it is for our type of business, because people are either in pain or they're not in pain, unless it's a chronic condition. So, whereas, say someone like your business where you're sort of, might be enticing people to listen and absorb content and they do it enough and then they want to engage with your services because you're educating them, whereas our clients are a bit different.
They come to you when they need help. But then again, maybe engaging with them, we're front of mind. So they might not have foot pain now, but their child might have foot pain in a month, and then they go, "Oh, that's those guys." So it's a little bit harder to measure though. And I'm all, I think measuring things is very important, especially when you're spending money on AdWords, and you want to see that conversion rate and how much cost per click and what is it leading to. Whereas we found that the return on those funnels were a lot less and harder to measure because they might spit out 6 months down the track. And then it's really hard to maybe track why.
Because people don't really remember how they... Even we question everyone when they come and do they remember how they got here? Maybe not. So you start to...
You were just front of mind. Well, great. You've brought up a lot of great ideas here and things for people to think about. Do you have sort of any final sort of success criteria around new patient acquisition, advice that maybe you might be able to, some wisdom, pearls of wisdom to instill in our listeners?
It's a good question. I think, if you're going to do anything, if you're starting off as a practice and usually money is your biggest constraint, you don't want to lay down too much. I think AdWords can be quite effective and punchy, and you can really set your budgets on those. bearing in mind if you set them too low, you may not get the return, but you can cap them out.
Mm-hmm.
I would steer away from any kind of blanket market media advertising like paper, definitely not radio, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We've tried those all in the past, and sometimes they're effective for certain things, but you can burn a lot of cash there. But building your local network doesn't really cost a lot. Only your time, but usually you've got a bit more time when you're starting out.
Mm-hmm.
So just meet and greet.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Now, we always have an extra question that we like giving because obviously we are online marketing for doctors. We like the whole medical marketing side of things. And recently we put out a sort of blog post talking about the 20 sort of ideas around these foot in the door offers that people, to just sort of get people thinking about the ways of sort of maybe bringing in people slowly and get them started as a small client that works into a larger client later as you sort of build trust and awareness around your services and brand. I was just wondering if you had any experience with these types of offers and if you're doing anything like that right now here.
Yeah. Look, we've played with a few in the past. So we've offered what we call no gap consultations where the health fund pays. We've even offered free consultations, and then currently we're actually doing a slightly discounted consultation as well. Again, I think the jury's out a little bit. Sometimes it may depend on the demographic of your suburb to a degree. Some people are a little bit more discount. Some suburbs might be a bit more discount orientated, where others are not. So, for example, the CBD is probably less discount orientated. People is time. Time is money there, so they want to be seen today or yesterday.
Right.
So, trying to get them in is more valuable than giving them a discount, whereas maybe a pensioner, a discount is a bit of value.
Sure.
So I think you have to sort of work out where is your clinic situated, and what will work with that demographic. I probably, when we've done the free assessment just to have a chat, that's been pretty mixed. The people who tend to come in to those appointments may not be the clients that you want long term.
Sure.
You're looking for free advice.
There was one free.
and there's a very low, sort of high attrition rate with those people. So they'll book in, and then you've blocked out 20 minutes in your diary, and then they don't turn up because there's no value for them. They're thinking, well, it's free. I'm not. And it's a funny psychology behind that, isn't it? You think that you're not paying for something, you should turn up, whereas it seems to be the opposite. If you charged a lot, say for example an orthopaedic surgeon charging $300 or $400 for that consultation, you're probably going to turn up to that appointment.
Correct.
Because you see a lot of value in it.
Correct.
So that's my slight concern with the sort of a discounting model. But then it's become competitive online, so I think you have to stand out a little bit as well.
Yeah, but also has to do with how you communicate the value of your free consultation.
Yes.
If you outline exactly what you're going to do in detail, so they can see the whole value in seeing you. You see what I mean? Then just purely mention free consultation without mentioning all the details, nuts and bolts of what you're going to do for them in the consultation.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
good advice.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Brent. And that comes to the end of our podcast today. Thank you very much for joining us and giving our listeners an opportunity to hear from your experiences in the business. We will, if you, one of our listeners, is interested in being a guest on the show, there's a link in the show notes to this podcast where you can click on the link to register yourself as a guest. And if you had any feedback that you wanted to provide, new patient acquisition tips or methods that you've tried, whether successful or not successful, feel free to put them in the comments section below. Thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. We look forward to seeing you at the next show.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Online Marketing for Doctors podcast with Huyen Truong and Steve Tate. Be sure to check out the archive section on our website for previous episodes at onlinemarketingfordoctors.com/podcast. And subscribe to the show so we can catch you at the next episode.